Hello again, rail fans. How many of you know what this is? This is part of the procedure that we all know as three-step protection. That thing we hear on the radio all the time when crews are switching cars around, and you have to give three-step protection so that the crews on the ground are protected from the train moving unexpectedly. This is the reverser lever. This determines whether the locomotive goes forward or reverse or nowhere at all when it's in the center. The engineer puts this down in the reverser and locks it in. Then he can set it to forward, center it, that's in neutral basically, or reverse, determining which way the locomotive will go. It's meant to be removable as a safety feature, especially if the engineer has to get off the locomotive for one reason or another. They take this out and can take it with them. It's kind of like the key to the locomotive. Anyway, my thanks to Tommy Clark, a former CSX engineer out of Savannah, Georgia. Tommy sent me this, and along with some other stuff that I'll get to in future episodes, but I really love this thing. This is a real piece of railroad. I don't think it's memorabilia because it's still in use, but it's a real railroad artifact. So thanks again, Tommy. Got a new sign back there on the fence. That yellow and black FP is a foul point warning that came off the BNSF. It marks the place at a siding beyond which a car or locomotive would foul the main line. Now that's a very cool artifact, and my thanks to Kenneth Fass of Spring Green, Wisconsin for this. He sent that to me. Much appreciated, Ken. Now what follows is the video that I shot on a recent Saturday when I ran from Tampa all the way up to Jacksonville, Florida. I stopped at some of my favorite places along the old Seaboard Main Line, the S line here in Florida. I did pretty good, and I thought you might like to come along. So let's go.
We start out today in Wildwood, Florida. In the first half of the 20th century, this was Seaboard Airlines' hub for passenger and freight traffic to the Florida Peninsula. Here you're only a couple of hundred feet off US 301 to the main line. I like this spot in Wildwood because it's wide open, has great morning light if it's sunny, and it's grass covered. It used to be SAL Railroad property. I don't know who owns it now, but I'm glad they keep the grass cut. This morning we're just in time for M457, daily mixed freight out of Waycross for Orlando. Today's train has a large cut of rock hoppers on the head end. All kinds of rock for all kinds of building that's going on around Orlando, especially expressway building. Following that big cut of rock hoppers, a distributed power unit. Then more building materials. Hoppers with grain, plastic pellets for packaging and manufacturing, finished merchandise riding as boxcar traffic, frozen foods in refrigerated cars, and a large block of new cars and trucks in auto racks. I believe just about everything Orlando gets by rail, including that's handled by the Florida Central Short Line, comes in on this train, M457. Now move north about 3/4 of a mile and you'll find another of my favorite spots in Wildwood. For decades, this was named North Wildwood because the yard lead begins right here. But in the 2012 S-Line improvements, they renamed it Moreland Park. It's also a wide area. On both sides of the tracks there are public roads, neither of which has a lot of traffic. I got set here just in time for another Southbound, one of my favorite trains, M453. This daily mixed freight out of Waycross, Georgia carries a lot of grain, plastic pellets, fertilizer, chemicals, and automobiles. He sometimes works Wildwood Yard, that is, he stops to pick up or drop off cars, but he's not doing that today. He'll likely keep going, changing crews down at Lakeland, then move south to drop fertilizer or cattle feed at Okeechobee, then down to Palm Center to drop the auto racks, and then Hialeah in Miami to yard the rest of his train. But don't hold me to any of that. These things change all the time. From this spot, it's only a couple of blocks to get back to US 301 and head north. 12 miles north at Bellevue, US 441 joins 301 for 25 miles through Santos and into Ocala and up to Spar. On the radio, I hear another southbounder.
B62105, 7794, clear, 8th Avenue, 2 track.
I only have a minute or two, so I make a run to the best place I know that's close, the SAL underpass over US 301 in Ocala.
B62105, 7794, clear, 7
It's B62105, unit ethanol bound for Tampa off the CPKC at Bensonville, Illinois. Note that white car right behind the third engine. That's a spacer car required by the rules to put some separation between hazardous loads and the crews on the locomotive. It's likely half filled with sand or concrete to give it weight, making it safe to run on the head end. This train is headed for the Hookers Point Terminal at Port Tampa Bay in downtown Tampa. There, it's blended with fresh gasoline before being loaded onto delivery trucks. There's usually another spacer car on the bottom of this kind of train. I don't know why this train doesn't have one.
This rail bridge here, this underpass, I guess you call it, is one of my favorite spots on the Florida S-Line, mostly because it reminds me of scenes out of my childhood. There were two just like this in Tallahassee. In fact, I think they're still there mostly. The one on the Appalachia Parkway was refurbished a few years ago after a truck accident there. But the one out on West Tennessee Street, US 90, I believe is still there and looks pretty much like this one. And I know there's others around, but these are the only three that I know of in Florida or anywhere on the old Seaboard airline. Just one of those things that, you know, you get attached to, you don't even know why. All right, let's keep going.
I always refer to US 301 in these videos because it and the S-Line run side by side from North Dade City all the way to Callahan, Florida at the Georgia state line. This is 301 at Campville with a pretty solid rainstorm building up ahead of us to the north. A couple minutes later, I pass Orange Heights, a 2-mile-long passing siding in Alachua County. There's a train waiting in the siding for someone, so I throttle up to get to the north end to see what's about to happen. As it turned out, nothing was about to happen. That train was actually a string of empty auto racks that CSX is storing here. The rainstorm turned out to be a moderate shower that didn't slow me down. Just then, the dispatcher was talking with local train L743.
Okay, I gotcha. I guess I'm going to need to ride down there at Wildwood to Bill.
L743 is some kind of local that traverses 2 or 3 crew districts, starting near Talbot in Georgia. But right now, that dispatcher is talking to him on Channel 54. That tells me he's here on the S-Line, probably at Baldwin and coming south toward me. I'm going to try and be ready for him at a place that I've never been to, but I've had it marked on the map for a long time, the Lawtey defect detector. Seaboard pioneered the use of the first talking defect detectors. It must have been some kind of elaborate tape playback system. The old VHF antenna is still standing on this one. Looking the other direction, I can see L743 coming at us from the north. The signals here are automatic block type. They're activated only by the presence of a train in the block, not by dispatcher control. I cannot say why one of them is lit with an approach indication and the other one is dark. was created as a rock shuttle between Brown Sand, Georgia and Winston, Florida. But these days it carries more than just rock. This one is hauling jumbo-covered hoppers that may contain plastic pellets, grain, or fertilizer, plus tank car and boxcar traffic. After L743, I'm back on the road headed towards Jacksonville. I'm on the X-Seaboard SP line looking toward downtown. These are the signals for the Honeymoon crossover. The signal on the right is for the track coming out of West Jack's Yard. I believe this is called the Brickyard Lead.
Dispatcher R636, 09, over.
R636, over.
You pulling or what?
We are rolling. We had to set our brakes back down, knock them back off.
All right. Here we go. You should be knocking down Honeymoon within the next 2 or 3 minutes.
That's right.
Coming out is a loaded coal train R636, as needed coal from West Jacksonville to Seminole Electric's plant in Palatka. Signal aspect, yellow over red over green, gives an approach slow. The indication is proceed, approaching the next signal not exceeding slow speed. He's going through a pretty sharp curve up there called the Seminole connection, so the system keeps him at 10 miles an hour until he gets to the second signal ahead, which is well past this twisty section of line. It occurred to me while writing this script, did SCL, sometime after the merger, put the connection track in that allowed trains coming off the SAL Tallahassee Main to go south on the ACL Sanford Main to Palatka? Up until the early 2000s, Seminole Electric got much of its coal that came down the Mississippi River on barges to Port St. Joe, Florida, where it was transloaded to rail cars, which then came north on the Apalachicola Northern Railroad to Chattahoochee. There it was interchanged with the Seaboard Coastline and sent east on the Tallahassee line to Jacksonville. Right here, it turned south on the Atlantic Coastline Main to its destination at Palatka. Could it be that the Seminole connection was so named because it was built to give trains on the SP line access to the Seminole power plant at Palatka? I contacted a retired railroader friend of mine, William Billy, in Jacksonville. It so happens that he worked the Seminole coal job in the 1980s and confirmed that the connection from the SP line to the A line south was in fact built for the Seminole coal job around 1983. It saved crews from having to make a time-consuming and complicated move across the Beaver Street Diamond, up the old S line, then backing up around a connection into Moncrief Yard just to turn the train southbound and give it access to the A-line. From way back then, right up through this rainy Saturday afternoon in 2025, the Seminole connection is still carrying Seminole coal. Some of you subscribers might remember that I was here back in November and took note of some construction right behind the warehouse here at Stockton Street. Well, it turns out I was right about them building a track in here. My track building friend, Del Cobb, confirmed it, and that was another reason why I came here this afternoon. Last year, I thought they might have trouble with drainage on this project. But see how it turned out? A beautiful industry track made with jointed rail and complete with a bumping post. And no drainage issues. Now, I don't know if they get cars to this customer yet, but it's ready if they ever do. Late in the afternoon now, I had had no lunch, so I was all set for an early dinner. I was in the neighborhood of Sam's St. John's Seafood on Normandy Boulevard. I headed that way and got the 2-item dinner combo, and they do not discriminate at Sam's. They just heft all those fried clams and shrimp in there together, along with 2 hush puppies. Sides were cheese grits and green beans. Delicious. I could not eat all this meal, so I bagged it back up and took the leftovers home for a second meal later on. All right, well, now that we've had dinner, we're going to swing out here back to Baldwin again, and we're going to try and catch I-045. I'm still having trouble with those new train symbols. The southbound intermodal train to Tampa. Just heard him on the radio, so we're going to give it a try. I set up at the south end of Baldwin Yard. In about 15 minutes, here he was, I-045, fast intermodal out of Duval Yard in Jacks to Tampa. In recent months, in fact, in the recent couple of years, this has not been a big train, and tonight's no different. Even so, here are 89 truck containers that will not be on US 301 or I-75 tonight. It's a gloomy Saturday evening as I push on southward, pacing I-045. At Orange Heights, I heard something hit the DD at Campville, just ahead.
Axle 744, end of transmission.
No defects, clear signal, south end Orange Heights, down 60490. 604 answering, over.
All right, when you get the ball, when somebody's supposed to be in place to replace your EOT.
It's been coming in and out. So right now we're running line speed, but we'll swap it out at Baldwin.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, if it's still working and y'all think it could last on the Waycross, ain't no sense in stopping you. But if it fails and again, we got that in the back pocket there. Over.
604 was having trouble with his end of train device tonight, possibly because a 744 axle train put the EOT a little too far away from the head end locomotive. The plan was to swap out the EOT at Baldwin. My plan was to double back up to Waldo and catch 604 and I-045. That's where the two trains would have to pass each other. I got set up at Cole Street in Waldo, one of only 3 crossings in the town. I got there about 30 seconds ahead of 604. M604 out of Winston Yard at Lakeland is nightly traffic that's mostly phosphate from the Bone Valley. Normally, that is. Tonight, this guy is the whole catalog. The heavy phosphate is in covered hoppers on the head end, but behind that is a string of empty yellow T-boxes, likely from Saddle Creek Distribution. Tonight, there's a big GEVO unit running mid-train DP. Followed by more hoppers, empty tanks, even more hoppers, and more tanks, and more hoppers. M604 is 183 cars, 10,412 feet long. That is why, at this meet, M604 did not stop. but the higher priority I-045 did. Waldo siding is 10,239 feet long, so the very long M604 would not fit in Waldo siding, but tonight's I-045 certainly would. That curve that 604 is disappearing behind represents a marker on the S-line. From there northward, there is not a single curve on this piece of railroad for nearly 50 miles. If you don't count Baldwin Yard, where they moved the main lines out to the east about 140 feet, the old Florida Railroad, which is today's S-line, is rifle barrel straight for about 50 miles.
I'll let go with the marker.
Coming south around that curve now is I-045. Now that 604 is north of us, 45 is moving on south. His next stop would be for a meet and greet at Anthony Siding, north of Ocala. There, I-045 would meet I-044. The crews would stop and swap trains, and everyone gets to sleep in his home terminal tonight. I followed them down there, but Anthony is in rural territory, and there wasn't enough light to shoot anything. So that was the end of my Saturday on the S-line.
I forgot to mention the Band-Aid. I had some surgery on my nose last week, and I'm having to wear this Band-Aid for about a week and a half, so that's what that's all about. So I apologize for that. All right, my thanks to two guys who really always come through when I'm looking for details on train origins and destinations and where they work and what they do. Joshua Kentner and Andrew Stevenson. Both of you guys offer invaluable help. You did for this video, and I thank you again for that. Also to William Billy, former Amtrak and former SCL conductor, for his help on that Seminole Connection question. Seminole Connection is that track that they put in Jacksonville there, where that coal train was running around. I love that. Why did the railroad do that kind of stuff? So thank you, William Billy. Much, much appreciated. Now, write your comments in the comment section down below. I read them all, try to reply to as many as I can. Hit the like button if you like this video, and please share it with your friends if you can. That really helps a lot. And let's make plans to meet up again somewhere out there on the high iron. And until we do, this is Danny Harmon